everyone, it's Mari here. I wanted to just pop on today for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I wanted to show you that I did finish my December album. So this is the album that I started at the beginning of December 2018, and I'm just finishing up. I just finished it. I thought I might finish it in July, but I didn't actually get that done. But it is finished now. It is really basic. There's nothing fancy about it. We went through quite a crazy year this past year, and I just really didn't have time to do this the same justice that I normally do. I wanted to give you a couple of updates though with what I used for an album and what my sort of views were of this album. So I used the smaller Ali Edwards album from this past year. I loved it. I really like this size. I think especially if you don't have a lot of time and you're looking for a smaller format, I thought this was really cool. This doesn't really, the inside of it doesn't really do justice to, the possibilities for one of Ali's albums because I just didn't have the time. But the possibilities are endless. It's a really cool system and I really liked it. And I definitely use this kind of album another time. So I just put the year on the spine there. I really love how there's a spot to put that on Ali's albums. It's the gray with the gold stars on it, the gold foil stars. And then on the inside, there's a few different inserts that you can get. The whole page ones, there's ones with a little space at the top and then a pocket. And then the two 4x3s. So my album this year, like I said, is just really, really simple. Did just a little opening page there. This little tag has some journaling on the back. A lot of what I write about in this album is about moving, and our house that we moved from was blue. And so this is just a little blue house and just, talking about how we decided to move and a little more journaling there, packing up, getting ready to go, the tree, and so on and so forth. And then just what we did to celebrate Christmas and a few little things, a little bit of journaling there, here and there. Just, some really basic stories to tell. I actually didn't even take that many pictures this year because we moved out of our home on Christmas Eve, which is kind of weird, but that's just the way that it went. It's the timing, right, of when we took possession and all that kind of stuff, and unpacking and, different things that we did to change the house and make it our own. And you know what? That's it. That's the whole album. So really, really basic and brief, but I like it and it's done. So there's that great project. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today that I've been mentioning in a few videos is testing out gesso. Some of us, when we're scrapbooking, we're not too worried about the longevity of our scrapbooks, and that's great. Everybody has their own reasons for scrapbooking, whether it's a creative outlet or it's, something that they want as a legacy or whatever. There's a lot of reasons why we do what we do for crafting. And one of the things that I've been noticing when I've looked back in some of my books is that some of the gesso is yellowing a bit. This is a mixed media page that I was working on that I didn't use this background. And you can see, and I don't know how well you can actually see this on camera, but you can definitely see where the gesso is. And this one isn't the worst. I've got some pages in my albums that are more yellow than this. This one actually isn't even all that bad, but you can see it a little bit there. And so I just wanted to experiment and see with the different kinds of gessos that I have in my craft space, what they do on the paper over time when they're exposed to the air, when they dry, etc. So I'm going to do a little experiment here with my gessos. I'm going to put them all, a little strip onto the paper. I'm going to expose this to some light and some air and see what happens. Okay, so I'll be back. I'm going to start off here with some Art Basics Gesso from Finnabair and Prima. On the back it tells me that it is going to dry clear and matte, so this is a transparent gesso. I'm going to put that down as my number 1 sample, And I just wrote down there that it's clear, it dries clear. And I'm just applying all of these with a palette knife, and I'm cleaning my palette knife each time. It doesn't say anything on the packaging about this being acid free, so I have no idea about that. This next one is an opaque gesso. This is Artist Loft. It does mention that it is a non-yellowing gesso. Of course, again, this is opaque, and it does say on the packaging that it is acid free. So this is one of two that mentions acid free on the packaging. So I'm going to put that down, clean my palette knife. This next one is Liquitex Opaque. Once again, it says that it is non-yellowing, that it can be used on a bunch of different surfaces. They basically all say that it can be used on paper or wood or canvas, etc. And you can see there I'm getting that down again, cleaning off my palette knife and going on to my next option, which is Liquitex Clear. The Liquitex Clear is clear and matte again. Once again, they all mention that they're non-yellowing, especially if it's the opaque gesso. I just put an extra little bit down there at the bottom because I had too much on my palette knife. The next one that I'm using here is Liquitex Super Heavy. There's different reasons why you would use super heavy, different applications. I wouldn't use this for scrapbooking, but I just wanted to put it down to show you. This one is also non-yellowing. Can be used on a lot of different surfaces. This is the Prima Finibert Opaque Heavy Gesso as well. So this would be a companion to the Liquitex Super Heavy. They're about the same viscosity or thickness. They would definitely add quite a bit of texture to your page if you're looking for that. And once again, those last two say non-yellowing on the packaging. And the last one that I'm going to put down here is the Vickie Boonton Opaque Gesso. This is the only other one besides the Artist Loft that says it's acid free. And once again, this is an opaque gesso, and this is much thinner, obviously, than either of the two heavy gessos. So there's all of my 7 samples that I have. I'm just rating acid free by the Artist Loft and the Vickie Boonton. And so that's where I put them all down, and now I'm going to show you the results. So now this is about 2 weeks later. I left this out to air dry. I left it in the sun for part of that time. I actually am showing it here without my studio lights on because in the natural light you can see it a lot better how yellow it is. I'm showing you here that of the 2 clear gessos, the Prima and the Liquitex, the Prima is super smooth and the Liquitex is really gritty. And so I'm going to also do a little bit of journaling with my gel pen on here. I'm going to write on it with the gel pen so that you can see what that looks like and the result of that. So I'm circling here that there was a little bit of a blob there. I got it down a little bit heavy. What I would recommend is probably if you want the best, thinnest coat to apply it with a brush, and you'll have more control over getting it on as smoothly as possible. I found that the little blobby areas tended to discolor, and whereas if it was on really, really thin, it didn't discolor as much. And that's for the 2 clear gessos. Okay, so the Liquitex Clear that I'm writing on right now, and the one on the far left, which is the Gesso Clear. What I'm writing on there is, or not the Gesso Clear, the Prima Clear. What I'm writing on there is just to avoid bumps by applying it with a brush. Now this is the Prima Clear, or the Prima Matte Clear Transparent. And it, once again, I would try to avoid bumps. This one is really, really smooth. Where the Liquitex is gritty, the Prima is nice and smooth. And so of the 2 clear ones, I would definitely pick the Prima just because it doesn't have that grittiness, and it doesn't have any yellowing at all. Neither of the 2 clears yellowed. Now I'm going to the opaque, and I would say that the Prima Art Basics Heavy, the second one from the end, or the second last one, if we're going left to right, is the most yellow of all of them. They're all pretty smooth, but I would say that my top opaque one is the Vickie Boonton because it's acid free and it's less yellow than the Artist Loft acid free. So for the 2 best opaques, for number 1, I would pick the Vickie Boonton, and the number 2, I would pick the Artist Loft. Now the Artist Loft is, I bought that at Michael's. I can't remember what I paid for it. I'm sorry. And I looked for my receipt, but it is 16 fluid ounces. It might have been maybe around $16 Canadian or something like that. But the great thing about Michael's is you can use a coupon. So my number one pick for the clear is the Prima Finibert. It comes in 250 mils, or the one that I bought is 250 mils. I bought it at Michael's with a coupon, and I think I paid around $6 Canadian for it. I probably wouldn't use the Liquitex Clear. I haven't been, just because it's a little bit too gritty for me. So I think in future, I'll be using more of that Prima Finibert Art Basics. And if you're going to be using an opaque gesso, what I would recommend is that whatever medium you're using it with, you make sure that you cover the entire gesso surface. So just because then none of the yellow is going to show, because you'll have it all covered. So I think that's just kind of like a good rule of thumb if you're using the opaque. If you're wanting to use transparent or clear, this guy right here that I'm showing you, I don't know, from the choices that I had, and there's tons of other gesso out there, I probably would pick this one. And then the opaque, the Vickie Boonton, it is acid free. I don't know about the Prima Clear. I don't know if it's acid free. I did a little bit of research, but I couldn't find if it was acid free or not. So that's another thing to consider. Thanks so much, and I hope this helped out. Make sure you leave me any questions in the comments below if you have any. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks so much for stopping by today. I really appreciate it, and I hope I helped you out a little bit. Thanks, and bye-bye.